Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Leader Talk. I'm SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell, your host. Today I have an awesome show with some awesome guests. As I've mentioned on past episodes, we're kind of doing a 3-segment episodes that are getting after leadership, the mindset of a leader, and building cohesive teams. And this week I have the team from the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership. And this organization is a think tank dedicated to the professional development, empowerment, and advocacy of our Army non-commissioned officers. And my guests today are guys that I've had the opportunity to serve with, both in combat and in the States. It's Command Sergeant Major Dan Elder. All of them are retired Command Sergeants Major. So I've got Dan Elder, Juan Ortiz, Lance Lehr, and Dave Litteral. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to have you on Leader Talk today.
Hey, thanks, Sergeant Major. Good to see you again.
All right, awesome. So Dan, I'm going to turn to you. It's been a while since Anaconda Balad back in Iraq when you welcomed me into theater there in 2003. But it's great to see you on here. It's great to see all of you gentlemen as a part of this think tank giving back. So Dan, the first question on everybody's mind is, what is the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership and why?
Yeah, great. Hey, and I appreciate you hosting us today. I brought with me a couple of great teammates. First off, the Institute is a nonprofit think tank, 501c3. We exist to serve externally as a voice of the non-commissioned officer. Now, think about it. NCOs had advocacy within the service. I mean, we've got the NCO support channel, obviously advocates for our seniors or subordinates and those that we, that we work with. And there's many great nonprofits outside of the service. But there's not one single organization that exclusively focuses on the professional development of the non-commissioned officer. So let me tell you where this came from. This really started 20 plus years ago. I'm gonna bring up a name some of y'all, some old soldiers may remember. That's Cindy Pritchard. Cindy, Command Sergeant Major Pritchard, who served as the CAC CSM many moons ago, worked with the Army Research Institute pre 9/11. And the Institute was studying NCO professional development. And she helped form an ad hoc team of sergeants majors, senior NCOs across the Army to help be a voice to the research community who are studying particularly NCO topics. It was a short-lived organization. It was ad hoc. It was mostly active duty soldiers. Though they provided good advice to the research community, which included not just ARI, but there's others like RAND and the Arroyo Center and other federally funded research organizations that study Army challenges and problems. What we found out since then is there's not enough soldiers to go around. And so when it comes to identifying solutions, particularly in the human domain, and for us, that's leader development, that's professional development. That's really what we're talking about today is leadership. And so the fact is the Army, the research community has a bunch of great scientists, PhDs who study tough Army problems, but they do it independently without soldier feedback. So in 2019, my company, I run a small business, Top Sergeant Business Solutions. We're training a leader development company based out of Temple, Texas, near Fort Hood. And so I was approached based on the work that I did working with Cindy back in 1999. I was asked to kind of restart some of that work. And so for the last 5 years, my company has been working with the research community to study NCO problems. So why do we need something like this? Well, our firm, first off, is we work in a nonprofit status. Though I run a company, to do the work that we do it at cost. So what we realized is this is not sustainable. A for-profit company can't exist very long. Though we've been at it for 5 years, this isn't all we do, luckily. And so we realized that when we come to the end of our research, just like we learned back in 99, we don't have an existing body outside of the Army force structure to help influence policy, to help collect data. We talk about making data-driven decisions. We want leaders who can do that. Where's that data come from? And then how valid, how current, and how useful is that data? So that's really what we're about. We're trying to provide something outside of the Army structure, which is a risk for sure. However, Army doesn't have extra funding. And so we've created an entity externally to the Army to be partners, to be collaborators with the Army NCO Corps without the bureaucracy of not being able to voice true concerns. I think about something that just happened recently, and that's the barracks, funding for the barracks.
Yeah.
The Army lost a lot of funding for barracks, and that's an issue for the Army. So who stands up outside the Army and fights for those kind of issues? Now, that's outside of our concern, but when we think about things like pay for NCOs, obviously our SMAs, our SEACs, our senior enlisted leaders across the Army are going to debate these things, but a lot of times we do that behind closed doors. And sometimes we're told, we understand your point of view, Sergeant Major, however, it's going to be this way. And so as good leaders, we're loyal to our commanders, and we salute and say, Roger that, and we support their decisions. However, sometimes that's not the best decision for the NCO Corps. And so who's going to be the advocate and the voice outside of Army structure to advocate for those challenges? So that's what we hope to be able to do.
So I would assume that this includes some congressional engagement, that because of your entire team is retired, you can go and have these open conversations that people in uniform. I remember me going to Congress. I always had to prep and everything because the last thing I wanted to do was get sideways with the chairman of the SecDef or the administration. So I would assume this is something that is included in your role as part of your external voice to the NCO Corps.
Yeah, without a doubt, as serving as the voice, though getting invitations, though we very well could, think tanks all the time are invited to the table to speak, as long as they have credibility, as long as they're trustworthy, as long as they're honorable, as long as we don't sway one way or the other. We're non-political.
Yeah.
So we don't take sides. What we think where we can have the best effect is the power of many.
Yeah.
When retirees go toe to toe and say, hey, this is what we think, a lot of times there's a hand wave. Sometimes people think we're out of touch. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's best for the Army. However, if we engage the soldier population, the NCO Corps, the existing NCO Corps, senior NCOs, sergeants, first sergeants, through dialogue, through professional discussion in public forums, we think that synergy, we think that collaboration, we think we can elevate the voice that can maybe drive change that right now, because of, I don't want to say restrictions, because it's not restrictions, the way the Army is designed. Following chain of command is important to the roots of the Army. However, when we cut PME, the NCO Corps makes up 50% of the Army. But if the NCO Corps gets 70% of the cut, that's not equality. That's not a fair approach to how we do things. OES may have a different approach, and they may not have such a cut, or civilian education. Percentage-wise, we're going to take our fair share of the cuts, which is expected, but we shouldn't have an unfair share. And when it happens, we need to be able to voice that, to be able to back it up with data. So that's where the research comes from. It's easy to have a gut decision. My instinct says that's not wise to cut 70% of PME, but let's prove that. So where we think we're different is we formed a team. We have a history of conducting research for NCOs with the Enlisted Leader Research Group. We've been operating that for 5 years, and we're very successful with what we've been doing. However, we do have some constraints because we're not independent. We're still under the auspices of the Army. By becoming independent and not beholden to dollars, particularly from any one benefactor, we can be able to talk more freely than we can right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that you're all about is mentorship and guidance. And I looked at this Core Compass program that you have there. Can you or one of the team further describe what that's all about in terms of getting after mentorship and guidance?
So I'm going to ask one of our teammates here, Juan. Juan Ortiz has some great insight on Core Compass. We don't own it; it's not ours. It was an Army program, kind of informal, and we understand there's some lack of funding. We feel we could fill that gap. So I'm going to let Juan talk about that. Juan, can you do that?
Sure. Again, thank you for inviting us on here. So, the core compass. So, let me go back a little bit here, a little bit about the Institute. Being that it's nonprofit, so we're doing this because we want to help the Army. And one thing that I realized in my experience over decades in PME is that we get senior leaders in there, enlisted leaders with great ideas, but there's not enough time for them to go to fruition. If you want to change something, it'll die when you get replaced. And the Department of the Army Civilians, it's just too much work that they don't pick it up, and the next commandant or the next senior leader might have a different take on it. And I think that that's important for this type of institute to exist, to give that voice and help the TRADOC Sergeant Major, because he's super busy, and I just don't even know how he gets all that stuff done. Going back to the core compass, so a couple of years ago, when Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston was the SMA, he got a report of sergeants majors getting in trouble in the first 18 months from graduation of the Sergeant's Major Academy. And, it varied on what kind of issues they were getting, but they were getting relieved. And he felt that we need a mentorship program, which we've been trying to get off the ground for the past 25 years, and it never goes to fruition because, we reinvent the wheel. So the Sergeant Major of the Army tasked Sergeant Major Schmidt, the Commandant then at that time, to come up with the Core Compass mentorship program. So we did this. We formed a team, and we did some analysis, and we went out to the force and recruited senior sergeants majors and built a pool. And then we did a leadership coaching training for them on how we were going to do this. And we had the whole thing in place. But again, it comes to the fact of lack of resources because we were working with a lot of people out of Hyde, and they PCS. And those days of students staying at the Sergeant's Major Academy a year or 2 years after graduation, they're gone. So they left it up to us, to my director at that time, and we did the whole thing. We got it digitized and the whole deal. But again, like I mentioned, new Sergeant Major of the Army, we briefed him. He was on board, but it's just fizzled out. So again, we're not there anymore. We did 2 pilots for a couple of classes. It was working very well, and it was a different teaching and mentoring methodology, right? So it's not like what I did to make you successful. It's how are you going to become successful, based on answering your own questions of, what it is, because we have all kinds of fields. So we did that for a couple of years. We got some traction, but a program like that takes about 5 years because you got to do some analysis and find out, what's the return on investment?
Yeah.
Did the amount of sergeants majors who got in trouble reduce? But then again, what happens? We go into that cycle where we change major sergeants major, the NCO with a TRADOC, and the sergeant major of the Army, and who's left to pick up the pieces? Probably nobody until somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you guys had this before. Let's start it again." And I think that's something that's important to have something like the IamNCO here, because we can leverage that, and we can advise, because I've known a lot of the sergeants majors and commandants. They're open-minded professional people, and if you come in there and show them and says, "Hey, this is what we're working on," more than likely they're not going to say, "Hey, don't do that. Let's just do something else." They're going to say, "Well, let me see what the benefit is, and who's on board, and then we go forward with that."
Awesome. All right, gents, we're going to take a quick break here for our first segment. And to our audience, please put your questions on the page there, and we'll make sure we get them answered even after we post this. We'll continue to have a dialogue with the IamNCO team to further educate people. All right, let's take a break. And first, let's hear from our sponsors at Downrange Supplements.
Downrange Supplements. As the brand of the troops, we produce only the highest quality supplements conducive to mission effectiveness. Whether it's our fully dosed pre-workout, recovery and rehydration, or Mermite protein, it's time to continually improve your fighting position with Downrange Supplements. Go to www.downrangesups.com today and take your training to the next level.
Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell here. Today, I have the team of the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership on here, a great think tank that is getting after the development of non-commissioned officers and enabling the Army to get after that. So we're going to jump back into this. One of the efforts, Dan, you talked about was research and innovation. Can you kind of talk about how you go about doing that? And are there any specific instances where you've had an impact as you've been doing this?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sergeant Major. So first off, we're in the infancy. The Institute is, in the Army, we talk crawl, walk, run. And, we were past the crawl stage and we're walking. The Institute is going to be the continuation of the Enlisted Leader Research Group. So what have we been doing? For the last 5 years, first off, the first thing we did is we brought on board what I call a bullpen of some great senior NCOs. Names that are well known across the Army: Scott Schroeder, Dave Davenport, Dennis DeFries. These are just 4-star guys, right? We got a number of senior NCOs. Really, we've vetted. Not that we don't have great sergeants majors, but some work well in the research community. Some work really well throwing hand grenades and jumping out of airplanes, right? So everybody's got a role. Yeah. And so we've lined up some of the top senior NCOs in the Army. We got from squad leaders to 4-star level co-com sergeants major. So we've got it covered. We got colonels and captains. So we've got this team that we formed to help the group, the ELRG, which is what exists today. The ELRG will end in 2026, summertime. This is the continuation of that. Now, we're not operating independently. We've been working 5 years with senior enlisted leaders in the Army, mostly 3-star and above in the operational force. It's just tough to get to the division, but we're working with division sergeants majors, 1st Cavalry, 1st Armor, and those who are open. We work with 10th Mountain, 82nd, before the Force Com Sergeant Major, TJ, before TJ left, we were working with him at the Corps and the division. So all of the COEs, Centers of Excellence. So we've got this great collaboration with active and guard. Our team has Brunk Conley and Mike Schultz, who are on the team, help us Compo 2 and Compo 3. So we're well represented as subject matter experts in operations. So we've been doing research in a number of different areas. I'm going to ask Dave Litteral to talk for a minute about one of the projects we have going on right now. And so what's the Institute doing? The Institute is going, we're going to pass the baton to them. And we're midstream right now, but we've been doing research for the last 5 years, and we're doing one that I think is pretty interesting. We've just been talking about today, Dave. We had a good workshop with the team. So can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure thing, Dan. And by the way, once again, thank you for having us on. So all those names that Dan mentioned mean nothing if they're not interpreted correctly. And by that I mean we've got a thing called a research gap. So you've got applied researchers who have probably never served a day in uniform in any fashion at all, and they're trying to go out and guesstimate what it means when a soldier says this is important on a scale of 1 to 5. They don't understand. And so what the elite SMEs that Dan mentioned, what they bring to the table for us is the ability to help us translate to the researchers. So at this point, we're giving them raw data from those SMEs. And it means nothing if we don't help them to interpret it. So we use a methodology. The methodology that we use, we call it the blended community science model, but it's really a hybrid of a type of research called participatory action research or citizen-enabled social science. And what those basically mean is the community that's affected gets to take part in the research. And so what that does for you is it shortens the flash to bang. You're not hearing secondhand from the researchers, you're hearing firsthand from the audience, from the people who are actually being affected by this situation, whatever it is. And as Dan mentioned, the issue that we're looking at right now is Army problem solving. And so we're looking at questions like, what's your best memory of a problem that needed solved? And then to go into, how did you learn from it? And try to put research numbers behind that to help us to understand. Now, at this point, this is the subject matter experts vetting these questions. So then we will be going to the force to actually take this to mid-grade and the junior aspect of the senior NCOs, the staff sergeant, sergeant first class, to help us to better understand where are we missing problem solving in our makeup. As we grow as NCOs, one of the toughest things is solving problems. And so the Army problem solving method is great, except it's not entirely relevant for every situation. So most of us, when we were faced with this survey, we all kind of scratched our heads and said, well, most of us learned by example, or we learned through discovery learning. So this research methodology that we use, the blended community science model, basically what it does is it provides clarity back to the researchers. It provides the researchers with something that's very important today, and that is context. Because you can say something and think you mean absolutely one thing, and your audience will tell you that's not what you just asked me. So the other thing is translation, and it's a bilateral translation where our SMEs will help to translate the research questions to the study group, but at the same time, they'll help to translate the information back to the researchers. And then ultimately, what we have is a thing called co-creation. And this co-creation, or you might call it collaboration, is where, again, because the group that's being studied has a voice in the research, that really shortens the flash to bang time for the researchers.
Okay, so a question on that. How do you make sure that the outcome of the surveys and the information you're getting is going to be relevant? And here's my example. If you remember in 2005, we started fielding the Army combat uniform, obviously, for urban combat in Iraq and everything. And through the surge in Iraq, 07, 08, the Army started doing surveys about whether we should keep the uniform. And the troops said, yes, we need to keep the uniform. So we invested a couple $1 billion in this. Well, then when we did the surge in Afghanistan and we started sending brigade combat teams there, we sent them to a non-urban environment in the ACU. And, it was, when I took over as the Corps Sergeant Major, I thought, hey, this is something that we probably should have thought about here, because now here we are in sustained operations in a different environment and we're wearing this uniform that sticks out and everything. So how do you as a team make sure that what you're receiving, that might be what's on the non-commissioned officers' minds and everything, but that is going to be relevant to the operating environment for the future? How do you guys get after that?
Yeah, that's a great question, relevant question. Garbage in, garbage out, right? I mean, if you ask 100 soldiers a question, the odds are you're going to get 100 different answers, right? That's a lot of experience. I mean, we see that. Really, what we hope to do is shape the dialogue. Obviously, we're not the decision makers. As we put together data, if you present the raw data, if you come up with some analysis, and then you share the raw data, others can take a look at it and make either similar determinations or decide, that they don't buy it. Research is not the answer to every problem. Can research go bad? It happens all the time. There's plenty of history on bad researchers or bad research. I think in the absence of data, having data is going to inform commanders, leaders,
Sure,
sergeants, majors, SMAs, SEACs to make decisions where there is no, they just don't have that experience. So it's a tool. It's a tool we don't have. At least that's not customized for NCOs by NCOs.
Yeah.
Research is going on. It's been going on, but it's been going on without our involvement. And to me, that's the gap. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Now we're more than research. The Institute will conduct research to influence policy and to influence dialogue or to have dialogue within the public domain like this. This is the kind of place, whether it's written in place, and I think we're going to talk about that in a minute, but let me pause and let you gather some thoughts.
Great stuff, Dan. One of the things I wanted to ask, because we're talking about research and innovation, are the roles of our non-commissioned officers continue to evolve. And people say change, but I say evolve. We have more responsibility. You have non-commissioned officers that are making decisions in the operational environment that 20 years ago only an officer would make and everything. So in terms of innovation and looking at the ever evolving operational environment and the character of conflict, how are you all getting after that with innovation to make sure
great.
that we're developing these or assisting in the development of non-commissioned officers and informing the Army on a direction that you would recommend they go?
Yeah. Hey, so you're surrounded by citizen historians as well. But Lance teed up some conversation on this just yesterday. And so we really had some good dialogue besides some mentoring in one of our workshops. But Lance was talking about this development that the NCO has gone through and some of the dialogue that's going on in the public domain that we're trying to engage in. So Lance, can you highlight that a little bit?
John, great to see you. Thanks for having us on.
Great to see you,
Really
brother.
appreciate it. First thing I'd say is follow up on the last question, which was, oh my God, another survey, right? So let's take our plan and the way we do business just for a second. All right. So this is not, we're going to bring you a 14-page survey and you're going to write questions until your wrist breaks, right? This is done in a particular manner. We bring in the senior non-commissioned officers, the junior non-commissioned officers, whoever that we're talking to, we bring them into a room, all right? We have non-commissioned officer mentors, right? We have these senior NCOs, retired NCOs there, right? We have military scientists there, and we ask them the question, okay? And then they can respond to the question to us. And we capture all that surrounding data, right? And that is where, as Dave Litteral said, you get the context.
Yeah.
So whatever the answer may be, without context, we're not going to get it. And certainly somebody back at their station trying to analyze it is not going to get that. That's kind of the difference in participatory action research than what you would get from a normal survey, right? So how many RAND surveys, John, did you do in your time? Probably 100, if not more.
Yeah.
So that first thing is that. Second thing is being able as an outside entity. First, as we modernize, and I like to call it adapt, right? We're adapting to a different future, complex challenges, right? Leader development is absolutely a decisive advantage. Our leader development programs within our Army, our ability to bring soldiers through a litany of tests, and that is non-commissioned officers centric, okay? We know we have officer education, we have PME, we do it hard, right? But this is a non-commissioned officer centric thing. 50% of the Army. And how do we get them to be able to speak to power because they have the answers? I know you've done this. I know you've sat in room with the seniors, juniors. You've asked questions and got answers to questions that you never were able to figure out on your own. And that's where this institute wants to head, right? We want to get it. We want to get the right data. And then we want to be able to share it. And we want to share it in ways that, are not replacing existing leadership. We're strengthening them by analyzing, supporting, and giving our perspectives. Yeah. And that's the non-commissioned officer perspective, right? I mean, so let's talk, there's critical questions about career progression, PME effectiveness, talent management. These things really demand good research, not, I feel like this will work, so let's do it.
Yeah.
It's more like, let's put something behind that, like we probably should have done with the Army combat uniform, looked at it from different perspectives.
Before we invested
right?
$2 billion.
Before we did this, right? And so we're rife with that. The Army is rife with that. We are rife with deciding that I am so-and-so, and I've decided that this is going to work. The problem is 2 to 3 years later, I am gone. Building that plank, building that strong deck, right, for everyone to stand on is what we want to help the Army do. And that's, that is what's important to us. We want to help the Army, right? We're not making any money here, right? This is a This is a way, as you do in your way, we want to do in our way. We want to give back to the force, right? Our
Absolutely.
average time in service of all the subject matter experts over 32 years, average. And so you've got all this knowledge to help. And oh, by the way, all these senior leaders that are out there, and we make that big circle, and those three circles, the scientist, the active, and the SME, and you get that middle ground right there, and you come to the answer.
Well said, Lance. Okay, gents, we're going to take a quick break here. And when we come back, I want to hit the external voice just a little bit more. And then, Dan, I'm going to ask you where we're going now in the future here. You mentioned the ELRG is going to go away in 26, but we'll discuss all of that when we get back. First, let's hear from our sponsors at PME Hard Consulting. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Leader Talk. I want to take a quick moment to talk about leadership. At PME Hard Consulting and Lead, we offer top-tier leadership development and coaching. With over 60 years of combined military and leadership experience to lean on, along with certifications in the Power of Positive Leadership, Power of Positive Teams, and the Energy Bus programs by best-selling author John Gordon, we offer training that will help you cultivate positive, impactful leadership within your organization. To learn more or to schedule your leadership workshop, head to www.pmehard.com and start building a better, more effective leadership team today. Hey folks, welcome back to Leader Talk. SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell here. We got the team from the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership, and we are talking leadership today and how to continue to assist in the development and evolution of the non-commissioned officers of the United States Army. During the break, Juan, I'm going to go over to you. You mentioned something about efforts that IamNCO could really partner with not just the Army, but the Joint Force, and further developing not just Army NCOs, but NCOs of all the services, including petty officers from the Navy and Coast Guard. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Most definitely. You had mentioned about the role of the non-commissioned officer has evolved over decades. It's totally different from the 70s and the 80s to where we grew up in the late 90s and the 2000s as leaders, and there's more interaction with the joint force. So history has shown that we had not done a lot of joint PME, right?
Yeah.
We wait till the Sergeant's Major Academy before we get touch on some of that stuff, unless you're specialized. And so I was working, and you were part of the pioneer of that when you were the SEAC to do a JPME.
Yeah.
And back in those days, the JPME was only online, and it was for E8s and E9s, and it was a prerequisite to go to the Sergeant's Major Academy. So there was a movement to evolve that and to bring it down to a junior level, so they staff sergeants and sergeant first class get exposure to that. You handed it off to CZ Cologne, and he did a great job. He came up with a couple of pilots that were the gateway. And we were part of that when I was at the NCO. My directorate provided instructors, and we were involved in that. And then what would happen is that we went down that road and did the pilots, and then we had a change of a SEAC, and we had Sergeant Major Black come in there, and he further came back, and he didn't let it go. He tried to mold it to fit different levels. So there's like 4 different gateways that you can go depending on the level of your rank, and which is a good thing. But where IamNCO can be of value in this is that, look at that, you have evolution, but you're only as good as the time that you're there, and then you hand it off to somebody, and even though they don't have a backup. They don't have somebody. And I know probably up at the joint staff with you didn't have a big old training development staff, right?
That's right.
And so you had to take some people out of hide to do that. So I think that IamNCO can really assist in that and assist the SEACs, because they're busy. You guys are busy all over the world, and we part of that, because I think that education across the board, across non-commissioned officers in our services, is very important. So we know how we fight, and learn those kind of things that we need to do when we're out in a combat environment.
Sounds like IamNCO needs a link up with SEAC Dave Isom here in the near future, so we can continue to get after this. So we'll see if we can't make that happen. All right, gents, I want to go back to the external voice. And Dan, we were talking at the break. You mentioned that you have great relationships, obviously, with Corps level guys, 4-star level guys and everything. But at the tactical level, is there a difficulty coming in to be able to meet with tactical level leaders and for them to understand that you are there to assist them and you're not there trying to reinvent the wheel or anything, but you're just an enabler to support them? What's that relationship like at the tactical level?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for bringing it down to the canteen cup.
Yeah.
So first off, the senior NCOs we work with they're enablers. We don't spend our time, a lot of time, surveying them.
Yeah.
That's not where we need the feedback from. We are on the line. We go to the Army posts. There's this process called Umbrella Week, where 1 week out of the year, all the major installations kind of invite all of the program executive offices, the combat developers, the researchers. 1 week, every major post allows access to the soldier population. And so that's one of the methods that that the research community goes out. We're a part of that. And we meet with soldiers depending on what we're studying. If we're studying a soldier level, operational type problem, then we're going to talk to operational or tactical level leaders. Depending on the problem set and who it's affecting, who influences it. Sometimes we'll talk with teams. Sometimes we'll talk with individuals. Sometimes we'll talk with individuals and then their leaders. So we can say, based on your assessment of this graduate of this PME course, how do you rate their skills in these particular areas? So each engagement depends on the research that's ongoing. So again, to get access to soldiers, we work with senior NCOs. They're the ones who own the formations. The formations are there. So we just don't come uninvited. We work through formal channels. We work with the senior NCOs so they know what we're doing and why. Because you know what? This is a distraction. When we come to a unit, it's a distraction. We want, some of their best, or we're asking for very specific. We want 4 platoon sergeants, 19, Delta and some 11 Bs, and we want these specific folks. So sometimes we have to translate, like Dave was saying. We have to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it, why it's important, and so we get the right people. If we get the wrong people, we're going to end up with bogus studies. So I think what we've done, I don't speak for the Army, okay? So I'm a contractor. My team's contractor. These guys are volunteers. They're volunteering at the Institute. What I'm talking about, the work that's transitioning, is work that we have worked on in the past. We've influenced the Army's new counseling statement. We created, with the research community, with our input, we helped influence what that looks like, writing and developing the actual documentation and the forms. We helped do the research and the surveys. We created a program which was instituted as part of Project Athena called Talk Like a Leader, where we instructed senior NCOs, mostly, staff sergeants and above, on how they could better communicate with their soldiers. And we took a clinical approach and we customized it for soldier population. Not only was it included in NCO PME, but it's now part of the curriculum at the Drill Sergeant Academy, where they teach each drill sergeant going through the program how they can communicate with soldier populations today. Those are some of the things just right off the top of my mind, but we've been developing products that we've been able to put in the hands of soldiers. Now, again, me and my team are not the key folks. We're not scientists. We do have some scientists. We have 4 PhDs on the team, but their roots are in the Army. Their roots are as enlisted leaders. Many of them went on to earn advanced degrees, and you don't have to have a high degree to be a part of our team. You've got to have that soldier knowledge and experience. But we do have some well-educated teammates as part of our group. It's the scientists who lead the studies. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to now also form a team of scientists and shift from being a supporting agency to leading a lot more research internally without a lot of external or Army resources. So we want to partner with them. We want them to be our customer. We want them to reach out to us and have us a part of their future research. And we think we can do that. but really everything we do is to put tools in the hands of soldiers to solve problems. That's what we're about.
Awesome. So, what's the future look like? What's your vision for IamNCO in the future, and where do you hope to take this? Any goals set right now that you're trying to get after?
Yeah, we're trying to pick up our stride, and so we're a nonprofit, and so we're like any nonprofit organization. We're a fee for service. We'd love to give everything that we have, every ounce of our energy, to different partners, customers, clients, call them what you want. But the fact is we're though the ELRG that Top Sarge Business Solutions is a part of will come to an end. We believe there's ELRG version 2,
Yeah.
2.0. And that's what we're trying to shape right now, is we want to continue with the research that we're doing with the research community in the Army, but we want to do that not with a for-profit, because again, that kind of comes with some baggage.
Yeah.
When people see my company name, again, you've already talked about how people come to assumptions that we don't come with honest intentions. So we want to take that out of the equation. And that's why we formed the Institute. Some of the same faces that have been working with the Army research community are going to migrate over. All of these guys on the team are all unpaid volunteers. One, we're throwing them some beer money, but it ain't a lot. But everybody else is volunteering. Lance is the executive director. We have 3 departments. We have the education department, and that's led by Command Sergeant Major Matt Lord. We have the research department, which is led by Command Sergeant Major Dr. David Litteral. And then we have the outreach department, which is run by Phil Johnbrook, Command Sergeant Major as well. But we have all of our SMEs and our support part-timers that work with us as well. And so what do we want to do is we've got some valid proposal that's running through the channels. Right now is a horrible time to be trying to get federal funding, as you can tell.
Oh yeah.
The federal government is cinching their belts, and we understand that. We understand lethality and investing in lethality, but what's more lethal than competent, talented NCOs? I mean,
100%.
We're the envy of every Army, and so again, we're not asking for anything more than our fair share. And when that doesn't happen, when the NCO Corps becomes the bill payer in its significant situations, somebody has got to stand up for them. Now think about it. Every professional organization has a voice outside of the organization. If you're a doctor, you belong to the American Medical Association, right?
Yeah.
If you're a lawyer, you belong to the Bar Association. Now let's talk soldier kind of stuff, right? Let's talk human resources, human relations, right? We do a lot of HR work. You belong to SHRM if you're a professional, HR professional, or if you're a project manager. A lot of senior NCOs get out of the Army and want to be PMs, and so you belong to the PMI. Well, look, we're not a member organization. We don't want no dues. You don't get a card when you join us. You're a part of the Institute just because you're an NCO. But we need to represent. We feel somebody needs to represent NCOs outside of the organization. Now, look, NCOA, great organization, lifetime member. AUSA, lifetime member, great organization. However, they have different focuses. They have their agendas, and their agendas don't match our agenda. And our agenda is specifically about the furthering the development of the non-commissioned officer. Oh, by the way, I didn't say Army non-commissioned officer.
Yeah.
Non-commissioned officer / petty officer, joint, coalition. Think about other nations that would love to emulate the Army NCO Corps. Right now, where our roots are in the Army, and that's where we're establishing ourselves. But we are not an army. We don't see ourselves as an Army organization going forward. We want to represent the best of the non-commissioned officer, the enlisted leader. If I could, we really debated about the name, and so senior enlisted leader. Senior, what about enlisted leader?
Yeah.
We love that term. ELRG, think about it, Enlisted Leader Research Group, a very deliberate naming. Unfortunately, it doesn't do any joint work right now. We won't have that restriction as the Institute.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, gents, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I appreciate you guys being on here today. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you laying out the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership. and where you guys are going with it. And I'm a fan now, and however I can help as we move forward, I look forward to doing that. Now, we close out every episode by giving a warrior shout out to some warrior out there in our armed forces that is doing great stuff. And Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can allow you or any of your team to give the warrior shout out to close us out today.
Yeah, I just want to set it up because I'm going to ask Juan to do this. But we've got great relations with the field. However, not every organization has had a chance to learn about what we do. And here at now Fort Hood again, back to Fort Hood. At Fort Hood, we got a great NCO Academy, and we've got a shout out to the Commandant of the Fort Hood NCO Academy. Juan, can you set this up for us?
Oh, most definitely. The commandant of the NCOA at Fort Hood is his name is Command Sergeant Major Christopher Desierto, and he is a pioneer in a lot of things that he does. Right, he is totally improving the NCO Academy down there. But one thing that really impressed me about him is that he has bought in on the development of young non-commissioned officers and soldiers, and he brings in gray beards. He brings in people that will make a difference, and says, "Hey, talk to the soldiers and let them know it's not a speech. It's something that you talk to them and give them some advice on how to be successful and how to why is it important to be in the Army." And he's also does all volunteers. He constantly volunteers to do the Commandant's Pre-Command course at the NCO COE. I mean, he was like my go-to guy, and I think he just did it again. So he's constantly the epitome of improving the foxhole. So a shout out to Command Sergeant Major Christopher Desierto of the Fort Hood NCOA.
Awesome. All right. Well done, Juan. Okay, Dan, how can our audience get more information about IamNCO? Can you talk about your website and any social media presence?
Yeah, first off, go to IamNCO.org. That's our nickname. IamNCO. We're all NCOs, right? So we are NCOs. So IamNCO.org. We also encourage you to sign up to our newsletter. We try to blast some information out. Right now, we're searching for research fellows, those who are in advanced studies right now. We're really where we can influence dialogue is in the public domain. So just like General George, the Army Chief of Staff, has got an initiative to get soldiers to write more. Mm-hmm. The Harding Project is one of those efforts. We also run Substack, where we talk about topical issues that are of importance to NCOs. We'd ask you to subscribe to our IamNCO Substack. So those are the three main ways to connect with us. We're in social media. Juan is one of the things he's been doing is marketing and outreach, helping curate conversation. And right now, that's the best we can do until we're able to bring in some more research projects. The team is slim, but as we bring in more research projects, as we bring more clients and customers, then we build out the team. But right now, we're trying to curate conversation, and we're doing that through our blogs on Substack, through our social media, and then our newsletter blasts or email blasts that we're doing through our gaggle mail, which is nothing more than an email news group, old school.
Awesome. Well, gents, thanks so much for being here today. This is awesome. And thanks for what you guys are doing and how you're continuing to pay it forward and give back to the force. And to the audience, say thanks for tuning in for this episode on leadership with the Institute for Advanced NCO Leadership. If you like what you see here, give us a follow on YouTube or Spotify. And I want to say a special thanks to our sponsors at Downrange Supplements and PME Hard Consulting. Have a great day. God bless you all, and God bless America. Boom.